They said it lightly, like a favor. Would love for you to come. His mother said, her voice arranged into politeness. Of course, we assume you'll handle your own expenses. Flights, lodging, meals. We're keeping things simple. Simple meant separate, it always did. My husband was on the couch beside me, scrolling, half listening. He didn't look up. I remember noticing the way the ceiling fan ticked once per rotation, slightly off balance, like it had something to say but wouldn't interrupt. I smiled. Not the brittle kind. The trained one. That sounds fair, I said. And it did. If fairness were measured only in math and not in tone, they left the room satisfied. The invitation had been extended, boundaries enforced, hierarchy preserved. I sat there another minute, hands folded in my lap, waiting for my husband to say something. Anything that would acknowledge what had just happened. He didn't. That was when I realized the conversation was over, not because it was resolved, but because I was expected to carry it alone. I didn't cry. That would have surprised me once. But disappointment doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives as organization. That night, after my husband fell asleep, I opened my laptop. Not dramatically, I brushed my teeth first. I plugged in my phone. I made tea and forgot to drink it. I pulled up the confirmations. The apartment they planned to use during the trip was in my name. We had moved there 2 years earlier, when my job required flexibility. At the time, it made sense for the lease to be mine. I paid the deposit. I set up the utilities. Everyone had agreed it was temporary. Temporary has a way of settling in. I reread the lease. Then the addendum. Then the email from the property manager confirming the 6-day absence window they'd given notice for, assuming continued occupancy. I drafted an email. Deleted it. Drafted another. Shorter. Clearer. I wasn't canceling a vacation. I was correcting an assumption. The next morning, my husband asked if I was excited for the trip. He said, distracted, tying his shoes. I'm staying home. I said. He paused. Looked up, confused, not alarmed. Oh. Okay, he said after a moment. We'll talk later. We didn't. He left with them the following afternoon. I watched from the window as the car pulled away. His mother waved. I waved back. No one asked why I wasn't coming. That should have hurt more than it did. Over the next 2 days, I made phone calls. The property management office was courteous. The kind of courtesy that comes from procedure, not sympathy. Yes, I said. I'm vacating effective immediately. The unit will be unoccupied. There was a pause, papers shifting, but the other occupants were temporary guests, I said. That's documented. It was emails. Texts. The sort of evidence you gather without realizing you're doing it, because part of you is always preparing. They asked about access. I'll return my keys, I said. All spares as well. I mailed them overnight. Then I canceled the utilities. The internet. Everything that had my name on it, which, it turned out, was everything that made the apartment livable. I booked myself a short-term rental across town. Nothing luxurious, just clean, quiet. Mine, each action felt small, administrative. But together they formed something solid enough to stand on. On the 5th day, my husband texted, "Everything okay?" I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Yes, I wrote back. I'm fine. I meant it in the most literal sense. They returned on the 6th day. I know this not because I was there, but because of the voicemail timestamps. The first message was confusion. The door wouldn't open. The keypad wasn't responding. They assumed a glitch. The second was irritation. Something about incompetent management. The third was my husband's voice, finally awake to urgency. Did you change something? By the 4th call, the screaming had started. Not words, sound. Shock discovering itself. They found the letter on the small table just inside the door. I'd placed it where the mail usually went. Familiar. Unthreatening. I imagined them standing there, luggage at their feet, airless apartment behind them. The letter water lam. It didn't explain my feelings. It didn't accuse. It outlined facts. That the lease had always been mine. That I had agreed to host temporarily, not indefinitely. That I had declined the trip under the stated conditions. That I had chosen not to continue supporting an arrangement where my presence was conditional, but my resources were assumed. I thanked them for their honesty. I wished them well. I included the contact information for the property manager, because clarity is not cruelty. The calls came faster after that. 5 in a row, according to my phone. I didn't answer. I muted the notifications and went for a walk. It was late afternoon. The air was cool enough to notice. A man was teaching his daughter how to ride a bike in the parking lot. She wobbled. He let go sooner than she expected. She didn't fall. I sat on a bench and felt something loosen that I hadn't realized was clenched. That night, my husband finally reached me through a different number. "What did you do?" he asked. "I stepped out," I said. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." Silence. Then, softer, "They're saying you locked them out." "I ended an arrangement," I said. "There's a difference?" He didn't argue with that. "Not immediately." "You could have told me," he said. "I did," I said. "I told you I wasn't going." "That's not." I finished. "And wasn't." Another silence. Longer this time. "What happens now?" he asked. I looked around the rental. Bare walls. One lamp. A cup of tea I remembered to drink. "Now," I said. "Things are clear." I didn't feel victorious. There was loss folded into the quiet. A relationship cracked. A future reshaped without discussion. That doesn't vanish just because a boundary holds, but I slept through the night. In the morning, there were no missed calls. No new messages. Just space. And for the first time in a long while, the space didn't feel empty, it felt owned.